Ryouta is an unemployed 22-year-old who is an elite Japanese player of Btooom, an MMO game that has sold almost 3 million copies worldwide, with his team ranked 10th in the world. In the present, an amnesiac Ryouta awakens in a parachute harness on a tropical island, only equipped with his bag containing a few necessities, a pouch full of countdown bomb-like weapons called timer bims, and a strange bead-like chip embedded in his left hand. At night, on the beach, he's pursued by someone who attacks him with cracker bims, failing to reason with him. Ryouta is forced to evade behind the bushes, realizing that he's forced to play Btooom for real, when his opponent corners him near a cliff. Ryouta then sets a trap by leaving a time bim on the cliff and jumping into the ocean, which kills his assailant. Later, while in the jungle, near a river, he sees a girl named Himiko. She just escaped from a man called Mitsuo who wanted to assault her, and from a killer named Masashi. Because of this, she believes that everyone on the island is her enemy. Himiko had moved alone to Japan and often plays Btooom whenever she's at home. What's more, it is revealed that she is Ryouta's bride in Btooom. He had married her and had an actual wedding reception in-game. Before running into each other, Himiko had woken up on the island simultaneously with Ryouta and had teamed up with 3 other men she first encountered on the beach. One is Isamu, Kondo's teacher, who first invited Himiko to join their group. The other is Masashi Miyamoto, an ex-member of the Japanese Special Defense Force, and the third is Mitsuo Akechi, an average guy who also played Btooom. She had a flashback. Himiko was having lunch with her friends in school as one of them brought out a flyer. The flyer was supposedly said to make the people they hate to disappear by putting that person's name on the paper. The 4 girls then laughed while joking about who they wanted to send off, believing that the whole idea of it was utterly ridiculous. A couple of days after that, Himiko invited her friends to visit Yoshioko's house, a guy she became close to in her apartment complex. She told her friends to go on without her since she wanted to put her things back in her house first. When she returns, she sees her friends are assaulted and they try to assault her, but she runs away by kicking the assaulter. Back to the present, Masashi and Isamu argue, and Masashi, without hesitating, stabs Isamu on the back of his neck in front of Himiko and Akechi. Because he obviously can go after them, Himiko and Akechi escape successfully from Masashi, but Akechi tries to assault her and Himiko kills him by throwing a timer bim at him. Back to Ryouta, who attempts to talk with Himiko about her case full of food, but she runs away into the bushes. Ryouta is still searching for Himiko in the woods, trying to locate her. He instead stumbles upon a man named Kiyoshi. He explains that 2 men also approached him, after which he woke up on a cargo plane with a small crowd of people who were all informed by a cheerful man on screen about their participation in a death game on the tropical island, after they learned that the objective of completing the game is to collect ice chip from the 8 other participants after they're killed. Many of them were infuriated, but masked men aboard the plane would use stun guns to subdue them. Ryouta was the most outspoken of the group and seemed to know the man in charge, but he was shot in the head with a stun gun, which explained his lost memories. The plane reached the island, and the participants were thrown out with parachutes. Ryouta realizes that Terrain's Japan, the group that created the Btooom, was most likely responsible for this. As Ryouta and Kiyoshi decide to team up to improve their odds, they notice another plane dropping food supplies onto the island. When Ryouta races after a food supply, a woman reaches it first, but only for her to be killed by a trap set by a man, who then just takes it and leaves. Ryouta and Kiyoshi then contemplate whether they should pursue another parachute, but they eventually decide to do so since they wouldn't be able to defend themselves if their strength was low. Upon reaching the parachute, they discover a small boy covered in blood, which appears that he may have killed a man for the food supply. In the past, a 14-year-old sadistic necrophiliac named Kosuki was arrested for murdering 3 women. Back in the present, a lawyer named Soichi discovers Kosuki near the shore skewering frogs for fun. Soichi explains that it's wrong to kill living things out of amusement, but Kosuki rejects that explanation. After a food supply drops nearby, the 2 investigate it with Kosuki's abusive father. He's forcing his son to use an implosion bim to retrieve the food supply from a tree and decides to take the case for himself, going on about the survival of the fittest sadist. Kosuke, tired of the abuse, activates an implosion beam on his father and kills him. Feeling a rush of euphoria, Soichi runs away frightened, saying Kosuke is akin to a monster at this point. Kosuke is discovered by Ryouta and Kiyoshi, who retreat after failing to reason with him as Kosuke chases after them with the intent to kill. Ryouta decides to fight to protect Kiyoshi. Ryouta and Kosuke soon recognize each other as Btooom players and engages after Kosuke attacks him. Ryouta hits his head against a rock, which causes a personality shift where he perceives reality as the game world. Ryouta defeats Kosuke by hiding his movements and with an advanced sonar canceling technique. Although Ryouta can't bring himself to kill the kid, he binds him to a tree, taking his food supply and his bims when he leaves. Kosuke is thrilled to learn that Ryouta is the top-ranked Japanese player of Btooom. While Ryouta and Kiyoshi are eating near the river, the body of Mitsuo, without pants, washes in the stream. Ryouta suspects that an enemy may be lurking upstream. He goes to investigate and discovers Himiko awaiting atop a cliff. She draws him out into the open by throwing a blazing gas bim into the forest. Although he attempts to reason with her, she attacks him with a cracker bim, prompting him to charge at her. She uses her stun gun to defend herself, but Ryouta causes her to stun herself and land on top of him. He's tempted to grope her while unconscious, but decides not to. Himiko awakens in Ryota's arms and activates a timer bim hidden in her pocket upon the fear of being violated again, but Ryouta deactivates it back. At the campsite, she explains to Ryouta and Kiyoshi that everyone on the island had been chosen by someone they knew that wanted to make them disappear. Himiko knows that her friend chose her for feeling betrayed. Kiyoshi deduces that a real estate customer must have chosen him due to an argument, and Ryouta realizes that his mother had chosen him for defying her. Suddenly, the group is attacked by a pack of Komodo dragons. After Himiko passes out, Kiyoshi carries her to the other side of the river, leaving Ryouta to handle the Komodo dragons. Ryouta realizes that other bims are useless if their owner is alive after a Komodo dragon bites Kiyoshi's leg. Ryouta manages to activate one of his cracker bims to scare it off. While Ryouta carries Himiko on his back, Kiyoshi carries all the food supplies and bims. Suddenly, a Komodo dragon appears and causes the two to get separated. Ryouta, having failed to find Kiyoshi with his sonar, thinks he's betrayed them, leaving them without weapons or food. But when a Komodo dragon attacks them, Kiyoshi undoubtedly returns and kills it using a homing bim, confirming that their sonars cancelled out when they were searching for each other. More Komodo dragons follow them to an abandoned communications tower near the sea. Kiyoshi tries to hold off the Komodo dragon using homing bims, but with little effect. This prompts Ryouta to use one of Himiko's blazing gas beams, using her fingers to activate the switch to drive the Komodo dragons away. Later, when Himiko regains consciousness, she still feels uncomfortable after Ryouta touches her shoulder. After Kiyoshi's leg becomes infected, Ryouta asks Himiko to hold down Kiyoshi to disinfect it. Back on the mainland, it's revealed that Tyrannus Japan is monitoring the events of the island, especially with a particular interest in Ryouta. As Ryouta notices the variety of food supplies and bims that Himiko possesses, he concludes that she had murdered many other participants, putting her under suspicion. Soon they're suddenly discovered by another participant's sonar, and Ryouta decides to be a decoy to draw the assailant away from his friends in the forest. Ryouta is attacked by the assailant, who's revealed to be Masashi. It is revealed in the past Ryouta and Himiko got married in the Btooom world, but Himiko didn't want to meet him in the real world just yet. Ryouta, realizing that Masashi and Soichi are working together, is overpowered and has his bims confiscated. Although Masashi allows Ryouta to escape after shocking Soichi with a stun gun, he planned to track Ryouta back to the abandoned communications tower. Ryouta tries to reason with Masashi, saying that the entire scenario was set up by Tyrannus Japan, as there may be a loophole in this Btooom game-like scenario, allowing everyone to survive. However, Masashi is slicing Kiyoshi's fingers off and pushing Ryouta off the cliff into the trees. Before he leaves, Ryouta returns unharmed and finds Himiko's phone, realizing she may be the same Himiko he knew in the game, judging from her cosplay wallpaper. At another abandoned building, Masashi and Soichi tie Himiko down on a bed and proceed to torture her a little bit. Ryouta Ryouta, leaving Kiyoshi behind, uses his sonar to signal and locate Himiko, prompting Masashi and Soichi to search for him after untying her. Ryouta questions if she's the Himiko he once played with in Btooom, but she denies this. The two are attacked by Soichi, who is consequently killed by his cracker beam, which Ryouta previously disabled. Masashi then holds Himiko hostage, challenging Ryouta to a fistfight instead. Ryouta rushes for Masashi's knife, only to be beaten to the ground. Himiko then jumps on Masashi and activates a blazing gas beam on him. Ryouta and Himiko try to escape by going through an opening in the ceiling, but Masashi grabs Himiko's leg to drag her back down. However, Ryouta reactivates Soichi's timer beam, which soon detonates and kills Masashi. Ryouta and Himiko take refuge in yet another abandoned building at night. Ryouta explains that he views the game world more as reality, especially with his relationship with the Himiko he knew in Btooom, hence his reason for saving her from Masashi. Himiko silently breaks into tears, not expecting to meet Ryouta in the real world and afraid of revealing her true identity as the Himiko in the game world due to her previous traumatic experiences. Himiko wakes up in the middle of the night and screams at the sight of a ghost. Ryouta investigates and discovers a seemingly crazed woman living nearby, knocking her out when she attacks him. Ryouta brings Himiko with him to calm down the woman, who was a survivor of a previous Btooom death game. Shiki was a nurse at an understaffed hospital, working with a doctor named Masahito, who blamed her for medical malpractice as they were both chosen to participate in the death game. The doctor blasts off her left arm after obtaining 6 icy chips and takes her chip after betraying her, leaving the island for a helicopter. As Ryouta and Himiko say goodbye to Shiki, it's revealed that Masahito sent back to the island and he treats Kiyoshi's wounds. Ryouta and Himiko return to Kiyoshi, who has his wounds treated by Masahito, who tricks them all into gaining their trust, but he discreetly intends to betray them and take their icy chips. Later, a new food supply case arrives on the island, urging Ryouta, Himiko, and Masahito to rush for it. Ryouta fights a man wearing sunglasses named Nobutaka. Masahito catches the food supply case and brings it towards Ryouta, who runs away from Nobutaka. However, after a fire occurs, Nobutaka grabs the food supply case and dives off a cliff into the ocean, and to which Ryouta follows him. Meanwhile, Himiko is attacked by a young female who constantly taunts her. While they're fighting, Masahito throws a remote-controlled beam their way, intending to kill them both. However, he notices that Himiko is still alive and pretends he is trying to save her. Ryouta resurfaces near a beach and witnesses another player fighting for Nobutaka's booby trap as he comes out of hiding and threatens Nobutaka with a cracker beam, telling him to drop all of his equipment. Nobutaka obeys, which causes Ryouta to get suspicious. As Ryouta approaches the equipment, Nobutaka activates a hidden remote control beam and seemingly kills Ryouta, but when he activates his sonar, he's surprised to see Ryouta still alive. Nobutaka leaves after he realizes who he was fighting, leaving Ryouta wondering how he knows his name. When Ryouta, Himiko, and Masahito return to Kiyoshi, Ryouta remembers that Nobutaka was his best friend in high school until he slept with his crush. After Masahito mentions that more food supplies will arrive at noon the next day, he suggests that a serum is needed to heal Kiyoshi's wounds. Ryouta and Himiko bring Masahito to Shiki's house to retrieve the medicine. As the three split up, Masahito finds some expired medicine and puts them in his case, which he entrusts to Ryouta, who has a strange feeling about this. When Ryouta signals Himiko, she comes back running and shouts at him to drop the case. Masahito discreetly placed a remote-controlled beam inside the case, which soon detonated. After Ryouta is seemingly killed, Himiko loses the will to fight, but Shiki saves her and wounds Masahito with a sickle. After Masahito sets off a remote-controlled beam on Shiki, Himiko laments about never having the chance to reveal her true identity to Ryouta. The doctor throws one of Ryota's cracker beams at Himiko. Still, it fails to detonate as it's revealed that Ryouta is still alive. Masahito runs from Ryouta to lure him into another trap and activates the remote-controlled beam, not knowing that Ryouta had moved the remote-controlled beam to another location, which explodes and injures Masahito. Himiko. Ryouta and Himiko hesitate to finish him off until Shiki appears, eager to kill him. At the last moment, she alters the blade's path next to him, saying she'll never forgive him afterward. Ryouta and Himiko find 3 corpses with their icy chips removed as the two head back to their place. Ryouta realizes that Kiyoshi would be the only one who knew about the 3 corpses. When Ryouta begins climbing the ladder, he hears a homing beam approaching and figures it out that Kiyoshi has turned against them. Kiyoshi was hallucinating his son and wife, both waiting for his return to target Ryouta from the forest with his homing beam. Ryouta dodges the homing beam, only to be targeted by another, injuring his leg. At the same time, he blames himself for Kiyoshi's ordeal. Supported by Himiko, they can avoid more homing beams, in which Kiyoshi panics and flees when Ryouta and Himiko go after him. Ryouta tries to apologize for his actions. Kiyoshi, feeling sorry for betraying them, detonates his last homing beam when he becomes surrounded by the Komodo dragons to atone for his sins. As Ryouta mourns for him, Himiko takes all the icy chips from Kiyoshi and they return to their hideout there. Himiko asks Ryouta to kill her so he can leave the island, but he refuses to, finally recognizing Himiko as the person he knew from Btooom and kissing her. Ryouta stops when he senses her fear, but promises to date her for real when they return home. Elsewhere, back in the mainland, several employees from Tyrannus, Japan, left for the island when it was said there were mechanical problems. One of the employees silently apologized to Ryouta, saying that it was the best he could do. Perhaps he did something to help Ryouta. Thanks for watching the video, and don't forget to press the bell icon for more videos. Like and subscribe to the channel.